Well, good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the eve of the general election in the United Kingdom, and we are going to find out tomorrow when the British public go to the polls who is going to win this election and whether it is going to be a majority or not. And right now it's seeming pretty clear that the Conservatives are going to win a majority. They have a 15-point lead on the Labour Party. And even in the roles of leadership, Boris Johnson is scoring about 37% of approval with the British public, whilst Jeremy Corbyn is down at 21% as his role as a leader. And, this is not surprising because, Jeremy Corbyn has basically blocked and stalled the whole Brexit issue for the last 3 years, and 40% of the British public feel that the Brexit question is the biggest question, the biggest issue in the election. And we have to remember that 60% of Labour's ridings are in areas that voted for Brexit. They voted to leave the EU. And so there is quite a bit of discontent in those ridings, and I think you're going to see some payback, and it's going to be ugly. So as I say, with a clear majority, this will give Boris Johnson a free hand to finally settle the Brexit issue and leave the EU. See, for me, this election, it's not just about who is going to run the country. This is basically a vote on democracy itself and the way democracy is going to run into the future in Britain, because we've certainly been seeing some pretty undemocratic behaviour. I know I sound like a broken record, but the vote on Brexit was a fair, legitimate and binding vote. 50 plus 1% was the winning total, and 50 plus 1% is what Brexit got. And as I said, we've had 3 years of nonsense trying to get this deal worked out. Theresa May was absolutely hopeless. Unfortunately, her words were pretty lofty, but there you go. She didn't produce at all. And that, of course, is the problem with words. As they say, talk is cheap. So we will have to wait till after the election. And, of course, we're going to find out how Boris Johnson is going to navigate all of these things. There are certainly other issues. The National Health Service was a creeping issue on the public's mind during the election. 22% of the public thought that it was an important issue. And of course there was an unfortunate incident where Boris Johnson refused to look at a picture of a young boy lying on a hospital floor on blankets and coats because there was no beds for him to go into. That was unfortunate, and I think he did lose a little bit of favour over that. But no, the Brexit issue is such a strong issue. That and democracy is what this vote is going to be all about. Okay, so let's flip over to this article that I found. It is about the state of polling, the most up-to-date polling that I could find on the internet, and then we'll come back and I'll do a quick wrap-up. Okie dokie, here we go. From The Guardian, Tories hold 15-point lead over Labour with just days until election. Okay, and here is a picture of Boris Johnson on the campaign trail in Cheadle on Saturday, and the Tories have managed to win back some pro-Remain voters. The Conservatives hold a 15-point lead over Labour just days before polling day, according to the last opinion poll for the Observer before the election. The Tories appear to have maxed out the number of pro-Leave voters who will support them. However, the poll suggests that Labour is not winning Remain voters over at the speed required to close the gap. Boris Johnson's party is on 46% of the vote, while Labour remains on 31%, and the Lib Dems remain on 13%. The poll suggests that Labour is slowly reclaiming some of the Remain voters who drifted to the Lib Dems. However, the Conservatives have also managed to win back some of their pro-Remain voters. So here we are, this is 27th of November, Conservative 46, Labour 31, Lib Dems 13. Jeremy Corbyn does not appear to be changing perceptions of his leadership in the same way he did in the 2017 election. In terms of who voters see as the best Prime Minister, Johnson is up 1 point to 37%, whilst Jeremy Corbyn is up to 21%. Public satisfaction with Johnson has decreased 2 points since last week's poll to 28, although outright preference to Corbyn has stayed level at 29%. Brexit remains the most important issue at the election, but health has increased in importance. In the first week, the most important issue deciding voting choice was Brexit, 40%, with health a distant second on 18%. Although this has narrowed with days to go, Brexit at 33% retains a slight lead over health and the NHS at 22%. However, in other regards, perceptions of Corbyn are not significantly worse than at the last general election. Currently, only 29% can imagine him as Prime Minister, whilst 3 in 5, 59%, cannot. At the same stage in the 2017 general election, a third, 34%, could imagine him as Prime Minister compared to 56% who could not. Perceptions of the election campaign have been poor compared to the last general election. At this stage in 2017, 2 in 5, 40%, said the campaign had left them with a more positive perception of Corbyn, while a similar proportion, 38%, had been left with a more negative opinion of Theresa May. In this campaign, Johnson appears to have come off slightly better than Corbyn. 3 in 10, 29%, said the campaign had left them with a better perception of the Prime Minister, while 28% had said that it left them with a more negative perception of Corbyn. Adam Drummond, head of political polling at Opinion, said the Conservatives achieved crossover a few weeks ago, the point where the lead over Labour was finally larger than at the equivalent point in 2017, indicating that Labour's sudden surge that year wasn't happening this year. The slow progress Labour were making has stalled, and voters' assessment of the two campaigns gives an indication as to why. At this point in 2017, voters expected the Conservatives to win a majority, but more said Labour's campaign had been successful than the Conservatives. Similarly, voters said they had become more positive about Jeremy Corbyn and more negative about Theresa May throughout the campaign, even though they wanted and expected May to win. The picture in 2019 is starkly negative. Views of Johnson and the Tory campaign are mixed, but the Labour's campaign is seen as a failure by 55% of the voters. Worse than the 49% saying this about Theresa May's disastrous 2017 campaign. Heading into the final week, a recovery is not impossible, but doing so would require a turnaround even more spectacular than the one Mr Corbyn achieved last time. And these are the most recent polls. This is from December 5th to 7th. And if you add them all up, this is all the different polls. Delta Poll, YouGov, Opinion, Panel Base, Savanta and Ipsos. So the sample size was 10,800. Conservatives 43.5%, Labour 32.7%, Lib Dems 12.5%, and way down here Brexit at 2.8%. So what I am going to do is I am going to link below in the description box a video by Pat Condell, which just came out recently. I really like a lot of Pat Condell's work. He is a very good speaker, and he speaks the truth. He absolutely speaks the truth. So I would urge all of you to go out and vote tomorrow, and because, as I said, this is not just a vote about Brexit. This is a vote about democracy itself. It's how you want to be governed in the future. And I'm not even certain that the form of government that we have right now will continue too far into the future, because it's just floundering on every front right now. But it is basically the only thing we have. If you neglect to vote, if you neglect to have your voice heard, and this vote goes down, and the Labour Party, or there's not a majority Conservative government formed, I can tell you, you're looking at another 4 bleak years of aggravation and waffling and indecision and inaction at a time when there are so many other things going on in the world that need absolute attention right now. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but right now. And to spend the next 3 years waffling would be just unconscionable. So yes, vote to have your voice heard. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. See you now. Take care. Bye.